I got a lot of work to do in a little time. So let's go. It is fitting that my deep man journey comes to an end where it begins, right here in this very spot in John chapter 9. The first text I looked at when I began to think theologically about this ability. Here we find the disciples asking Jesus what's wrong with the man born blind. Here we found the church folks that see a blind person and they think he's out of place. They think that there's something wrong. But the master tells us that he has to do some work so they could perceive the man right, so they could see him as he is, the glory of God that's already in him. But I wonder what it felt like to hear church people think that you don't have a place. I want to speak from this subject, finding a place. I think Naaman knew how it felt because the text in First Kings tells us that Naaman was a warrior, but Naaman was the king's friend, but Naaman had a lot of acclaim, but he had leprosy. He had a debilitating skin disease that was contagious to the touch, and the commentators suggest that it might have been a minor skin disease, but at home they knew it was a problem because the text tells me a servant girl says, I wish my master would go see the prophet. I wish Naaman would go to church. How many people with disabilities have heard if you only just go to church? But I was there 2 days ago. I don't understand if you only go to church. But then I began to think, Juliet, how did Naaman make it through the world? Maybe nobody saw him without his armor on. Maybe he healed his disability. Maybe only his family and the king knew he had leprosy. Have you ever gone through life with your armor on? Have you ever walked the earth with your armor on? Now, I have some evidence, Dr. Bubbs, in the text because the text says he shows up to the prophet with his entourage. He's got riches. He's got people. He's got an armor bearer. He leads with his greatness. Yes, I know he went to the king first, but he shows up to the prophet with his armor on. He goes to church with armor on. Have you ever been to church with your armor on? He went to church so he could prove he could belong. He went to church to prove he was worthy. Maybe because he was scared the prophet would say he didn't have enough faith. Maybe he was afraid that the prophet would lay hands on him and not try to figure out what he actually needs. Maybe it's women's, but maybe he was afraid that they would call him to preach and not let him in the pulpit. Have you ever went to church with your armor on? And the commentators suggest that maybe he was puffed up understand what it's like to go to church with a disability. If you watch my documentary, Small Plug, the director tells you why I'm annoying. And he says I'm annoying because I'm always trying to prove myself. I'm always telling somebody about what I can do. I'm trying to tell him I'm worthy to work with. I'm worthy. He don't understand I got my armor on. He doesn't understand that when we go to restaurants together, they ask him what I want to eat. When I go shopping with my mother, they ask her what I want. I gotta wear armor. But thank God somebody convinced him to bathe in dirty water. Now, why did he have an attitude about that water? Maybe because leprosy is associated with being unclean. So maybe he thought it was an insult. See, he had been insulted so many times that he didn't know when somebody was trying to help me. He had his armor on, but somebody convinced him, and he took the armor off. He got in the dirty waters, and he came out cured. Cured. The leprosy was gone. I want to argue he was healed because he realized he didn't have to prove himself to the prophet. The prophet didn't come and see how great he was because it didn't matter how great he was. He was a person. He deserved to be healed. It didn't matter what his accolades were. He got healed because all the trauma he was facing melted away because he found somebody that loved him just because it was him. He got healed and cured. And I wonder what it felt like. And I'm reminded about Camp Jane Ayler, Camp in the 70s, where people with disability could do everything. They let them swim, they let them have fun. The documentary is called Crip Camp on Netflix. This is the time when there were no ramps and elevators. But they went to this camp and they got to be free. Some of them lived in institutions, but now they have free. And I'm looking at Monet because I asked my class what they thought, and Monet said it feels like heaven. And Dr. McCray, I lost it because it reminded me of the text. Because the text says, after he got healed, he tried to play the crip tax. You know what the crip tax is? It's a phrase in the disability community. So I know it's brash, but stay with me. It costs more to be disabled. So we got an ASL interpreter, we got me. Do you know why we don't have any Braille? Because one program was going to cost $70 for 5 pages. There's a tax. So he went to the prophet and said, here's your tax. He said, I can't take that. He said, give me some dirt. What? See, in this time, the deity was attached to the dirt. So he wanted to take a dirt off so he can build an altar. But he also wanted to build an embassy. Oh, it's preaching time. Now, do you know what an embassy is? you go in the embassy of Mexico, they will stamp your passport. Because it doesn't matter what country you're in, when you're in the embassy, you abide by the rules of the country that owns the embassy. He said the rules are different here, so I need a hiding place. So I'm going to be an embassy back home. So anytime I get upset, I'm going to Israel. Here's my question. What if church was the embassy of heaven, where everyone was accepted, where everybody was healed, where everybody was delivered, where the wicked shall cease from troubling and the weary shall be at rest? Well, the wicked was cease from troubling. They don't ask me what's wrong with me. They don't challenge my faith. They just don't try to kill me. They try to heal me. And the weary shall be at rest. So if I can't stand up, I don't. I don't have to fight people to let them roll my wheelchair up front. You don't have to pick me up because they actually bought a ramp so I can access the stage where the weary shall be at rest. Does anybody want to go to heaven? I want to go to heaven on earth. You can find a place on earth. It's women's history month. Hagar called it the place where God sees me. Dr. Robinson said the woman in Samaria, she found that place at the well. There was a woman caught in adultery. She found it at the foot of Jesus. Do you want to have a place? See, something happens when you find a place. See, in the movies, they understand they can't duplicate heaven. So the literary thing they do is they put them in an infinity room with all white walls. And the storyline is always, I can't show you heaven, because if I do, you won't want to live. But we got a secret here. See, when people don't want to leave, they take some dirt with them. And what happens when you take dirt with you is you can go duplicate it at home. You can go duplicate it at your school. You want to duplicate it on the job. You can build an embassy anywhere you are. You know what happened after they left Judea? The world was not good enough. It wasn't good enough that they had to go around back to get in the building. It wasn't good enough that every building didn't have an elevator. So they looked in their pockets and they found some genetic dirt, Dr. Bugs, and they began to protest. And one day they took over buildings and they set up an embassy of DNA in the government building until the 504 clause was signed. And then they marched on Washington, I feel good, until they created the Americans with Disabilities. That I'm trying to tell you because they experienced heaven, they could duplicate it in the world. And I'm getting a doctorate because somebody came out of DNA and somebody said there's gotta be adaptations for these folks. They had some dirt with him. Find your place, but take some dirt with you. God bless you.